Mike, check 1 2. It's the Y2K collector, and I'm here to give my thoughts on the controversy over the PlayStation 5 30th anniversary edition. I haven't really weighed in on this as of yet, just because I've been preoccupied, just doing some other things. And I knew that the moment I heard that this was announced, that everyone's attention would be on the PlayStation 5 30th anniversary. And usually, when everyone's focused on one thing, that means that a lot of people are missing opportunities in other places. And so I usually try to just look for other opportunities whenever all the hype is surrounding one thing. I compare it to the recent release of and this is for all of those who follow sneakers. I know not a lot of my channel does, but recently there is a Nike sneaker released. It's called the Travis Scott Air Jordan 1 Low. And for any of you who know about what's been happening with the reselling of sneakers, a lot like the reselling of video games, people are a lot more particular, including resellers, about what they buy. And for the good part of this year, a lot of sneakers that a lot of people thought would sell out have been sitting. And a lot of people were waiting for the Travis Scott sneakers to release. And when they released, they were immediately sold out. So I think people are just becoming more picky. Resellers in particular are becoming more picky about what they actually focus their attention on. Now, I say all that to say that I feel like with this 30th anniversary edition deal, I feel like a lot of these things, like these limited edition, these once in a lifetime opportunity deals, a lot of these are really just meant to create a lot of buzz, right? And create a lot of attention around other products that the company might be trying to sell. And if you think about it, the consumer, right? Consumer sentiment is down overall. Like, consumers are not in that mental space where they're thinking spend, spend, spend. In fact, a lot of consumers are in a space where they're thinking save, 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 or how am I going to pay for my next meal, or how am I going to pay to replace my car that's breaking down, right? There are a lot of other concerns that are filling the minds of today's consumer. And I think that the 30th anniversary edition PlayStation 5, while it is a really good looking console and it's very cool, and I'm sure that people are going to resell that thing for the price of what you would pay for probably a 2006 Honda Civic, you know, it's just the nature of selling. It's the psychology of selling. It's the psychology of sales. It's the psychology of products. And so I think that if you were able to secure a PlayStation 5 Pro 30th anniversary edition, more power to you. Congrats to you. You were one of the select few that was able to take advantage and secure the console, especially if you're a person who's a collector and you're someone who's wanting to pick it up to add it to your collection and keep it as a showpiece, which as a collector, I see nothing wrong with that. You know, collecting items as showpieces, especially if you're building a large collection and you have a room or you have a space where you house your collection, there's nothing wrong with doing that. You know, I don't expect every person who buys the 30th edition anniversary system to you know, play it every day. Like, in fact, I don't anticipate anyone playing their 30th anniversary PlayStation 5 Pro. So I think it's just it's just a different time. You know what I mean? It's a different time. And the fact that there hasn't really been anything else produced or as hype, because a lot of times we talk about like hype around sneakers, but there's also video game hype too. It's just that the hype with video games, I think it plays out a little bit differently. And I think that usually there's a lot more access to pick up very hyped up video games. Even when you think about companies like Limited Run and Strictly Limited and Super Rare, despite a lot of those games feeling and seeming limited, we never really feel like we don't have a chance at getting it. Whereas like with some sneakers, you legitimately feel like you're never going to get it, at least for retail. So when you look at like the PlayStation 5 Pro, just to me, it's the first console or video game that I've heard about in a while that truly felt limited, that truly felt like if you didn't get it at launch, you were going to wind up having to pay an arm and a leg to even, to get a chance at getting it. And, it's not, there's really no real possibility of you getting it for retail. I kind of liken it to when they announced the Super Mario 3D All-Stars. Like, I remember when they announced Super Mario 3D All-Stars, and they had, there was all this talk about it being limited, and, it's only going to be for a limited time, and once they stop making them, there'll be no more physical copies left. Yeah, there was a lot of hype, and yeah, there was a lot of excitement around it, and I think a lot of people wound up like pre-ordering their copies and stuff like that. But it never, like, that game never really felt completely out of reach. It never felt unattainable. It never felt like there were more people interested in it than there were copies being made. It wasn't until like a few months ago where, now we've seen, maybe a year ago or so, where we saw the price of that game really spike up into the 80s, 90s, 100s, because people, are starting to hang on to any of the loose copies that they see around, because they know eventually it will become limited to some degree, or more limited than other like mass-produced Nintendo Switch games. So it's really just a concept of supply and demand mixed with a little bit of FOMO, mixed with, a little bit of sales psychology that companies play on consumers to reinvigorate the consumer. A lot of it is meant to just reinvigorate people who don't want to spend any money, people who are maybe sitting back and waiting for the next big thing to buy. This was it. And so, the only thing that I would say to that is that now is really a good time, in my opinion, to start looking at other things, to start looking at other consoles, other video games, other things that people aren't paying attention to, and seeing who's willing to maybe sell off other parts of their collection at a discount because they're wanting to buy the resale price, or willing to pay the resale price to get PlayStation 30th anniversary. Because best believe there will be people who will be selling off portions of their collection to be able to afford the aftermarket price. There will be people who will be willing to pay that $4,000, that $5,000, whatever it is, to get that console into their collection. Because the way they look at it, 20 years from now, when they release a 50th, year anniversary or whatever, if they do, that will just make, the 30th anniversary that much more valuable, especially considering the limited numbers that were made and how they all are numbered and the whole 9 yards. So the way I look at it is, I really don't have any feelings towards it personally. Like, I don't love it. I don't hate it. I understand it though. Like, I understand it from a business perspective. I understand what this whole 30th anniversary rollout was meant to do, and it's doing exactly what it was meant to do. If you think about it, Nintendo's getting ready to release a new system. Sony has not had the best reputation over the past couple months. I think people were very underwhelmed by their announcement of the PlayStation 5 Pro. So they needed to do something, I think, to put themselves at the forefront in the minds of a lot of gamers and a lot of collectors. And I think that's exactly what announcing this limited 30th anniversary console did. Whether you like it or you hate it, you've been thinking about it, and you've been talking about it, and you've been watching people make videos about it for at least the past week, because of, the sales psychology that they put behind it. And like I said, I don't love it. I don't hate it. I just understand it. I understand from a business perspective what they're trying to do. And who knows, who's to say that they don't have another 12,000 consoles that they're just waiting to release? Who's to say that they won't release another 20,000 consoles afterward, should, once they recognize the demand, or once they see what's happening on the resale market? Who knows? There's still things that Sony can do to make this opportunity more attainable for loyal Sony customers and loyal Sony fans. So you know, I'm sitting here with a box of PlayStation 2 games, because, that's what I'm focused on right now, because I knew my chances of getting, my odds of getting that console were very low. So, but let me know what you think. Do you love it? Do you hate it? Do you understand it? Does it matter to you? Are you willing to pay resale? Do you think other people will be willing to pay resale? And what do you think Sony will do in response to all of the aftermarket hoopla that's going around a console that hasn't even released yet? So I think that's the funny thing. Yeah, so just gonna be running some errands this morning. Hopefully I'll be able to get that video out to you guys this afternoon. I feel like a broken record saying that. Been dealing with technical difficulties all week. Been balancing technical difficulties with errands, responsibilities, and all while at the same time trying to run out and get some pickups, find some games. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. It's the Y2K Collector. I will catch you later on. Take it easy.